In the previous part, we saw Tehran transform itself from a mud brick village into the center of royal power. The Pahlavi dynasty's intoxication with modernization used bulldozers to erase the past, building Western-style avenues. But that blind development tore the city into two life-and-death halves, an ultra-luxurious North Tehran and an impoverished, furious South Tehran. The pressure cooker was full, and in 1979, it exploded. But what happens when those who toppled the throne begin to remold the city according to their own will? Welcome back to part 2 of the history of Tehran. When you want to permanently erase a dynasty, smashing the throne isn't enough. You must also erase the names of the streets people walk on every day. In 1979, millions of people from all walks of life, students, intellectuals, small merchants, and the devout poor, took to the streets, sweeping away the Pahlavi dynasty that had existed for over half a century. The Islamic Republic was established. The prestigious Pahlavi Avenue was instantly stripped of its royal name, changed to Wali Asr Avenue to honor the 12th Imam of Shia Islam. The monumental King's Memorial Tower, made of white marble reaching for the sky, was stripped of its name, becoming Azadi Tower, Freedom Tower. Tehran donned a cloak of piety. Western-style advertising posters and cinemas were removed. Instead, massive concrete walls were turned into stages for religious murals. The streets were shaded by images of religious leaders, the bright red blood drops of martyrs and Quranic quotes. The new regime transformed Tehran from a stage of capitalist consumerism into an open-air cathedral. Every step citizens took was enveloped by ideological, educational messages, constantly reminding them of the sacrifices and values of a closed theocracy. There are scars that cannot be seen with the naked eye because they are etched straight into the eardrums and nervous systems of an entire generation. The cruelest test of Tehran's soul did not come from within, but from the sky. In the 1980s, during the grueling Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein launched the War of the Cities campaign. His goal was to break the will of civilians by raining Scud missiles directly onto Tehran's residential areas. Put yourself in the shoes of a father in Tehran in 1985. The silent night is suddenly torn apart by a deadly sound. The red alert siren. It wails, ear-piercing, shrieking from loudspeakers atop the mosques. You jolt awake, grab your half-asleep child, and frantically rush down into the dark, damp concrete basement. Your eyes stare blankly at the glass windows, heavily crisscrossed with tape, praying that when the bomb falls, the glass won't shatter and pierce your child's flesh. After the siren comes a suffocating silence. Then, an earth-shaking explosion strikes. It's not just a sound. It's a physical shock wave that crushes your chest, making the ground beneath your feet tremble violently. For months living under the rain of bombs, tens of thousands perished or evacuated, turning many neighborhoods into ghost towns. Decades later, just the beating of a drum at a festival or construction noise is enough to make survivors flinch. But paradoxically, this very life-and-death external pressure became the social glue that helped the young regime solidify its firm position in the hearts of the people against Western hostility. Nature once bestowed upon Tehran a sturdy fortress wall against invaders. But hundreds of years later, that very wall turned around to choke the city's lungs. Entering the 21st century, Tehran bloated into a resource-draining megacity of over 14 million people. The proudest hallmark of this era is the Milad Tower, a concrete and glass icon soaring 435 meters, piercing the sky. But if you stand on the Milad Tower's observation deck on a winter day, you will rarely see the horizon. What hits your eyes is a thick, toxic gray smog hovering right above the heads of millions of people. Tehran is suffocating to death. Why? Look at its geography. The majestic arc-shaped Alborz Mountains embrace the north of the city. Once a shield, it has now become a giant wall blocking the wind. Combined with temperature inversion in the winter, all emissions are trapped within the urban basin. Under the pressure of international sanctions, Iran suffers severe shortages of natural gas and technology. To keep the lights on in buildings and power the factories, the government is forced to burn mazout, a cheap, filthy fossil fuel with toxic sulfur levels many times higher than safety standards. The ecological machine is completely broken. The Air Quality Index, AQI, constantly remains at red alert levels. Tehran's citizens move like ghosts through the streets with stinging eyes and burning lungs. Hospitals are overloaded due to a sudden surge in respiratory diseases and strokes. Tens of thousands die prematurely every year. Fresh air, once a natural privilege of the mountainous region, has now become a luxury. Blind urban expansion combined with economic sanctions has turned the city into a giant gas chamber. The early hours of March 1st, 2026. A timeline that will go down in Tehran's history. No air raid sirens had time to sound. Everything struck with a blinding flash of light, followed by a series of space-tearing, soul-shaking sounds. The massive bombing campaign, Epic Fury, launched by the United States and Israel, struck straight at the heart of the capital. Their goal was a decapitation campaign aimed at eradicating the leadership apparatus' nuclear capabilities and reshaping the geopolitical structure of the Middle East. Tehran's gray sky was now dyed blazing red by an inferno. The Central Command headquarters collapsed. All internet and telecommunications were completely severed. The uncertainty created absolute terror. In the squares, thousands of regime loyalists wailed in despair over the devastation and the deaths of religious leaders. Meanwhile, in some hidden corners of the city, faint, stealthy hopes for the overthrow of the old order flickered. But the consequences of this military strike far exceeded geopolitical calculations. It did not bring liberation as Western powers fantasized. Thousands of tons of crushing bombs only made the Iranian people unite more with their Islamic Republic. Iran is too big to collapse from bombs unless internal conflicts are enough to bring it down from within. As the dust of gunpowder and mazout smoke intertwine to embrace the shattered city, we look back at Tehran's 240-year journey. From a tiny mud brick town into a megacity trapped in paradoxes and then scorched by missiles, it is absolutely not a geographical curse, as people often think. It is a historical domino effect. The Qajar Kings' Hall of Mirrors illusion covered up poverty. The Pahlavi dynasty's bulldozer blade created an irreparable class divide. The rigidity of doctrine framed political choices. And finally, blind urban expansion coupled with sanctions turned the sky into a deadly black cloud before everything was brought down by the geopolitical ambitions of external powers. When looking up at the burning sky, in the concrete ruins of Tehran, what evokes our deepest admiration is not the scale of the palaces or the towering greatness of the Milad Tower. The true greatest legacy of this land is the fierce vitality and the ability to bite the bullet and endure of its ordinary people. Just like the Muqani craftsmen of the past who risked their lives in the dark to dig Qanat tunnels, bringing water to the desert. The people of Tehran have survived despotic dynasties, the rain of bombs in the 80s, and an atmosphere filled with toxic gas. The Alborz Mountains have stood there for thousands of years, cold and covered in pristine snow. They have witnessed crowns proudly worn and humiliatingly dropped. Will the people of Tehran, after the tragedy, be able to pick up every stone from these bleeding alleys and rubble with their own hands to rebuild a future where they can determine their own destiny? A future not suffocated by darkness and manipulated by great powers. History, with its ruthless, cyclical nature, still waits in silence for the answer. I am Robert Langdon from Reconstruction History. Thank you for joining us through the fiery, sorrowful, yet truly magnificent epic of Tehran. If you found this two-part journey insightful, don't forget to hit like, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to decode the world together. See you in the next chapters of history.